Okay, here's our practice video for Minuet in G by Beethoven. We're going to start with the exercises on page 23, and it's very, very important that we start only with these exercises before you try to put everything together, because if you can work on each exercise and really get it down, then putting it together becomes very easy. So the first thing we're going to talk about is bow division, how we divide out the bow. And what we're going to try to do here is divide the bow into three equal sections. I'm going to put the third finger on the A string. I'm going to go right to the frog, and I'm going to play in three completely equal sections, making them sound exactly the same. So the same length and the same sound. We're going to use a nice slow bow that sort of sinks into the string. And you want to listen very carefully that it sounds exactly the same and that you have that nice toe sound. In this case, a little deeper into the string than sometimes. And you can take that and do that with G major scale. So on each note of the G major scale, we do three subdivisions of the bow. Notice that the tip of the bow is lighter than the frog. The frog is the heaviest part. So you need to make sure you're thinking in terms of leaning in a little bit to keep the sound equal up there. But of course, only leaning in with relaxed weight of your arm and not pressing and not getting tight. Okay, so now we're going to come back to page 23. And we're going to go down to the third exercise that you see on that page, which starts with the first finger on the A string, B, and it's going to be starting in the middle of the bow. And we're going to play 1, 2, 3 are the fingers. So here we go, starting from the middle, going to the frog. And notice that on the last up bow, I ended up back in the middle of the bow. So listen very carefully to the rhythm, the dotted rhythm that starts. So it's 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. We want to make sure that dotted rhythm never turns into a triplet, which would be like 1, 2, 3. We want to make sure it's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So very, very snappy rhythm, making sure the second note is late enough. I'm going to do it one more time, just so you can see again. Now, I'm going to put the other notes in that we hear in the beginning of Minuet in G. So what we are doing is B, C natural with a low 2, and then it's going to be 3, high 2, 3, high 2, 3. So the high 2 is C sharp. We have to make sure we're changing from low 2 at the beginning to high 2 for the C sharp. And we're going to make sure it's more, less more, less more, less more as far as the bow. So the first exercise on the page puts everything together. We start in the middle of the bow, and here's how it sounds. So again, listen. That's the rhythm. So the second note is relatively late and not coming early. And we make sure that just like the three subdivisions were equal sound and equal amount of bow, we want these to sound exactly the same. So see how everything is completely even. If you find as you're putting that final one together that you're not quite matching on the bow, the three subdivisions, it means you need to go back and just keep working a little more on just the three. Then after a while, that will get automatic, and then it'll be very easy to put the left hand in. So one more time, this is how it sounds. Now, I'm going to go down to where it says half position exercise. We have first position, second position, third position, and on up. But we also have what's called half position, which is when we go down here and start down here and actually substitute fingers that would be here in first position. So you'll get a sense of this as you look at this first exercise. We start with 1 on the B on the A string, which is on your tape. And what we're going to do is go 1. The 1 is going to come back to the low position for A sharp. Then we're going to keep 1 down and put 2 where the 1 was. So 2 is going to be on the tape for B. We go back to 1, back to 2, back to 1, and then back up to where we started with 1. And the goal, obviously, is to make it sound like you're not switching fingers at all. So you come down, you get used to coming down, 1, and then the 2 is substituting where the 1 was. Then we come back up at the end, and you don't have any sense that you're changing fingers like that. So one more time. Now, the next exercise that goes into what we have in the piece, which is starting again from the middle of the bow. This is exactly the same bowing and the same 3 subdivisions that we had in the beginning. 1 comes back, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, and again ending in the middle. So again, you see how I went from 1 down without a lot of sound. There's a little bit of in-between sound, but we can take that out by just making sure the 1 is not tight or heavy, but that it's just coming down here in a very real fast and it lightens up as we go back. In the beginning, it's very important, I think, to put a stop and then come back and then keep going and then back up. Okay, so the next exercise deals with the second part of the piece. All of this is in the upper half of the bow. So it starts in the middle. We have down, up, 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 down. So the down bow is pulling back up, and then the up bows are these short toe, toe, toe bows. We'll put 3 on the A string, again for D. Start in the middle of the bow, and this is how this sounds. This is called staccato exercise, and staccato are short notes. Now we have to do this not just on one string, but with string crossings, within string crossings. So the next 4 measures under that staccato exercise have the string crossings, and we're just going from A string over to D and then back. Now, we're going to make sure that the sound is completely even as we do that, first of all, and that we're doing the string crossing only from the wrist with a loose elbow that's just hovering right there at just the right place to get back and forth. So I'm going to back up so you can see my elbow a little bit and the whole thing here. I'm going to start with 3 on the A string again, and we're going to go down, and notice I'm making the string crossings quick. I'm preparing way before the bow moves. It's very important that we don't hear anything sticking out here, like we don't hear or any anything. They're all the even, completely even sound, and they very, very beautiful ringing up bows. So if you just think toe, 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 you'll be all set. And in between, of course, the arm stays completely relaxed. Now, the final exercise before we put all this together, at the bottom of the page, deals with what's happening here with the bow. And also you see where the C natural and the F sharp have a big circle around it, around those two notes. Now, what that's showing you is that what you have to do is go from the low position on the A string up to the high position on the D string. And you're going to have to make sure you stop the bow to make sure your finger can go from the one place to the other without hearing anything in between. So I start again in the middle of the bow, pulling to the tip and then doing the up bows. We start with 1 on the A string. And of course, 1 has stayed down that whole time. The next measure, we lift 1, A, 2. Now 2 is going to lift and go a half step position higher on the D string. Use 4. So again, something very similar happens in the remaining 2 measures, starting on the E string. 2 hops over, 4, open A. Now 2 goes up on the D string, goes from the low position to the high position. This is 2, and then we lift 2 again, slide 2 up, not lifting it, but sliding it up. Okay, so again, so those are the exercises. I think as you work through them, make sure you just stop this video for each one and just work on each one, then start the video again for the next one. And once you've gone all the way through that, it's time to turn the page, or a couple pages, because they actually give this to you a little bit early, to Minuet in G. And now what I'm going to do is put this all completely together so that you can see how it fits together. And you'll see that all the parts that we just practiced are there in Minuet in G. So we start in the middle of the bow, and the elbow is going to push to the frog. You're going to have the feeling of the elbow pushing to get you all the way to the frog. The upper arm is going to move. And we're going to think more, less more, less more, less more. That's what the accents mean. They're weight accents. So you're just going to sink into the string and then sort of release the weight of your hand a little bit on the faster notes. And it says with grace, gracefully, is how this is marked. Con gratia. Okay, so the middle of the bow, here we go. Rest. Notice that I've come back to the middle each time, and we can write that in your music also. It's a very good idea to just put that in. Notice also where the rest is and where it isn't, that we have a little comma in that second full measure. That's going to be just a little breath mark, but it's not going to be a full rest. And we want to make sure that we think about a long line so it doesn't get fragmented and just sort of plotty. It would be very easy for this piece to get sort of plotty if we think just note by note, but we're going to think about the long line. So I'm going to do it one more time. From the beginning, here's the repeat. To the middle, to the frog, rest, and we're back in the middle. Now here, crossing the string, and really be careful on this string crossing. You can practice stopping the bow, but we want to hear completely even sound between the two strings. So string crossings all from the relaxed wrist, and the elbow just stays nice and loose. And here comes our 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1 that we practiced. So this is the pickup to measure 5. To the frog. These two are at the frog. And make sure you don't rush in that last section. From here, very nice, beautiful line that goes all the way to that D. Now, here's the next section. To the frog again, middle to frog. To the middle, rest. Rest. And you see how it started out like what we had before, but then you have that little change in measure, let's see, 14, the pickup to 15. That's where we have different notes. We have 2, high 3, 4, 1. And you see how I practiced that with the stop. That's the way you want to do that first. We're going to do it again from measure 9, the pickup to measure 9. Full bow to the frog, from the middle to the frog. Now here I'm going to slow the bow down. I don't want to go and run out of bow. I want to do the opposite of that, where I slow the bow down and can almost feel like I'm crescendoing through the G and the F sharp. So full bow, full bow. So we push to the frog through those 16th notes. To the middle, to the frog, rest. Now we come to what's called the second ending. The first ending, we did the repeat. The second ending, we go on. And we want to end that, let's see. Letting the bow come up here to the tip. And this is where we start the trio section. So the tip, this we should practice first with very slowly, making sure that the fingers, the left hand is always preparing way ahead of when the bow moves. So here we go with the trio section. 3, 1, D, 1. 1 stayed down. Lifting the 2 and setting it. Now we are going from the C natural to C sharp. So high 2 now, 3, 3 stays down, and then we go back to low 2. So that measure right there, measure 21, you want to isolate that one measure, set your C sharp, your high 2, then prepare for low 2. So that's the idea all the way through here as we have these sharps going to naturals. So I'm going to start it again at the trio section. One, one, one. Here we do the same thing we did in that other place where the 1 goes down and back, and we want to do that without hearing a lot of slide in between. So you want to keep your finger light, stop the bow, do a fast, come down nice and fast ahead of when the bow moves. So right there. High 3. And we want to keep the string crossings as close as possible. I'm going to take the repeat now one more time without talking. Now more bow as we go on. Now we have an echo, so less bow, and we get the stops back. Two picks up and goes to the high position. Then I pick up the bow and come back to the middle and do a repeat of the first section without any of the repeats and go right to where it says fine, which means finished in Italian. Notice that, so we definitely have a lot of time between the trio section and the minuet, and you want to make sure it's a very nice ending. Almost like the ending of a piece, plenty of time to come back, and then you repeat. Notice that when we took the repeat, though, there was no slowing down or any pause. The first time it goes right back, and you have the sense of suddenly finding yourself back in the repeat before you even know what's happened if you're listening to this piece. So, and then the only other thing with this that probably should be said, other than watching where there are stops and where there aren't stops, is doing the final line and just really making sure when you're jumping over strings, doing these wide string crossings, that you're doing it very efficiently from your hand still, and making sure you're not hearing any noise in between, string crossing noise. So... Okay, so as I went over to the E string. So that's the entire piece. You can hear how it sounds all together on the CD, played all the way through, but those are the practice parts. Of course, take it very slow. Start with less bow in the trio section. So when I said more bow, you might want to start that out slowly with just less bow. But that is, those are all the main points for Minuet in G. So good luck, happy practicing.